lot, but also like the whole not being coddled thing, because you like, if I was like crying or having like an episode or something, you guys would be like physically present for me.
Yeah.
But you didn't coddle me, because then it's like, okay, like you need to like drive yourself to school. Like now we're not like letting you like just beat you essentially, because you need to go to school. Like you have to go to college and stuff like that. Even like, because I had to drive sometimes with like ice packs under my legs, or like holding an ice pack on my neck, like driving down the 5 freeway. But yeah, like that just I like appreciated that, even though I hated it in the time being, because then it could show that like, no, I can actually like, you said this all the time. It's like, don't let it beat you or something like that. So just that definitely helped.
Like you own it. It doesn't own you.
Exactly. So.
All right. Hey, my name is Noah Elias, and welcome to another episode of Creating a Life by Design podcast. And this is an awesome show that allows me to be able to sit down with extraordinary individuals that can help share strategies to help you live more on purpose. And I want to first say thanks to everybody that has been watching the show and listening to every episode, commenting. Please give us a rate, and if you'd love to, share this with somebody else, but that really helps support us and keeps it going strong. So thank you so much for your support for that. Today I have a special guest, my daughter, Griffin. Griffin, welcome.
Hello.
And I'm excited because Griffin and I have been talking about this episode for quite some time, and we were in the car and we just started thinking about, hey, what are some of the things that we could share that we've learned? Multiple topics, so this might be multiple episodes that we can unpack together and be like, hey, what is it that we've learned in our whole journey of our family, whether it be faith, whether it be parenting, whether it be work ethic, whether it be best days, all these different topics of what we live out and live as a family. But I'm just so excited because I'm pumped for our viewers to get to know who you are, how much you already know, what it's like us working together. You know, there's so much that we're going to learn today. So first of all, thanks for doing this, Griff. I'm stoked and glad that we get to do this. This is a dream.
Yeah, that's nice. Not just setting it up.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So Griff plays a big part in actually running this show, and I'm super grateful for her investment. Why don't you tell them a little bit about what you're studying, what you're actually doing at school? Because I think that plays a big part into kind of how you're wired.
Yeah. It's weird because I feel like so many people already like know who I am, and I don't know who a lot of people are. So, I'm currently a film student at Biola University, where I'm studying, directing. So I want to be a film director, one day. And yeah, it's so fun. Liked it a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so fun. I love doing it.
Well, I'm not just saying it because you're my daughter, but you're doing a great job. You're crushing it. Your quality is unbelievable. You have a great eye. I saw that early on, and it's awesome to fan that flame, to just see you flourish in that gifting. It's incredible to watch. I'm really proud of you.
Thanks.
We want to kind of dive right into today, because I think one of the big ones that we can look back on when you were growing up, how important, there's like this whole catchy saying that's been going around for years about work-life balance and having the balance between the two. And growing up with me as an entrepreneur, it can be really easy to, for a father like me thinking that he was the provider back in the early days of like, oh, I got to make this happen. I got to build all this. But there was, because of TMP, the master's program and the mentorship that I went through with Bobo, and what I learned there, one of the big parts was investing in your kids, not spending time with your kids, not just wasting time with your kids, but investing. And one of them was best days, right? Mm-hmm. So I kind of want to start out there, like us kind of unpacking what best days has meant to you. What have you learned from them? And just kind of like, it's been a long time. We've been doing it for over a decade, these these exercises of a best day. Maybe describe to our viewers what that means and why it's so important.
Yeah, so best days essentially are like you also sometimes would call them like yes days or something like that, but like or like we would call them like dad and Griff days. And essentially it was kind of like you kind of like just kind of ask your kids like what do you like, essentially like what do you want to do, like, and there's not really a limit on it. Because we've even done like days where it's like, okay, I just want to like go to Disneyland back when we had passes. Or like, hey, I would like to maybe like go to Vegas to go see a show and like see friends that we have out there. Or just like even going to lunch, like, which is like pretty much what it's like lately. But yeah, it just really early on showed that you, as my dad, because like even like when I was a kid, like I had a lot of respect for you because like, you were one of the busiest people that I knew, and also because you were self-made. That like I realized that like really early on. So it was just like, oh, like my dad like is with as busy as he is, he's like carving out entire days just to like spend quality time with me. And that's kind of even like transferred over to like people I have in like my life. I'm like, hey, if my dad's as busy as he is to carve out a whole day, like that's how I'm like people, like quality people, I would like show effort to put into me because my dad put in effort with me. So like you set the bar like very, very high.
Good.
But yeah, so it was just kind of having that quality time of like, hey, we're not going to go see a movie because that's not really quality time, but it was like, how can we talk? And you even were like, you would ask me questions and I would be like really annoyed as a kid because I'm like, I just want to have fun. But just like, how do you think everything's going like with the family? Like, is there anything that we can improve on? Is there anything I can improve on as like a dad? And I'm like, no, you're fine. But yeah, it was just like showing the quality, like effort and like quality, like intentionality of it all. Like that really like even spoke out to me like as a kid. So, and like how important that was. So yeah, definitely.
No, it's good. Talk a little bit about what you would tell parents that like you're looking back on your childhood and you're now like launching, you're in launch mode, right? Talk a little bit about to parents why that matters and makes such a difference. You know, it goes fast. Childhood goes quick. You know,
I mean, well, it just kind of showed that you were like actively investing in a relationship with me. Cause I know like a lot of kids who, or like a lot of people that I've met, like their parents are just like, they think they're present, but they're not. Like one time in high school was like, yeah, like my dad and we all had like dinners together, all together, like all the time, or we had breakfast together every morning. And they were like, oh yeah, like, they were like, really? Yeah, my family hasn't eaten together in like weeks. So it was just like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even realize some people were like that. So it just kind of made me really lucky, really lucky. But it's even like carried on now as an adult. I'm kind of like reversing it in a sense of like, now I'm getting busy. How can I making sure I spend like time and like with you, or invest in a relationship with you, even if it's just like a quick lunch.
Right. Yeah. I think there's two things. Respect and trust are two big factors. You and I had this conversation the other day when we were like walking, and you said something that was pretty amazing that really stuck with me, was just this whole idea of, but it was like something that had to do with the whole idea of, and I remember we used to go toe to toe a lot. It was really, really difficult. You went through a really hard season. Anxiety was a gnarly part of it. And like, that was a big part of it. But I remember we were having conversations about like, if you want, like we use this saying, if you want to be treated like an adult, and we kind of spoke this over the whole household, we need to act like one. And so how do we earn each other's respect? And I would say at this point in my life with you, it's like, I've never respected you more than right now. Like, but dude, this took time for us to get to that point. How do we get to a point where the kid respects the parent so much and I respect you so much that I don't want to screw any of that up? Like it just, everything matters, right? And so can you speak to that at all as to like,
I don't know. That's the thing, because I knew as a kid, because even like learning like what your story was and like how you've like gone from like point A to like current point B, like I like had a massive respect for you since I was a kid. And like the honesty like about that, and just kind of seeing the benefit or like the byproducts of like your growth. But, yeah, that I was even like wondering because the way you guys raised me, at least, like, I don't think I turned out bad.
Yeah.
But I like I was talking with my therapist the other day, and she's like, "You're one of the most emotionally intelligent people for your age I've ever met." And I was like, "Well, yeah, my parents raised me that way," but I'm like, obviously, like, respect comes with emotional intelligence, I feel like. So, like, that makes me even wonder, how did you guys even raise emotionally intelligent children?
Well, yeah, I had great help from Elise, great friend, who helped teach me about it. But I was in therapy for I started in therapy when I was your age. And so I was always wanting to learn because I just felt like I came out of our family of origin. I felt like I came out in a deficit. And I'm like, dude, I got to import this. I'm not going to go get it at school, but I don't think this is really something that I don't think you can just go get emotional intelligence at school. Like, emotional intelligence comes from a tremendous amount of experience, but also a tremendous amount of learning, and not through, it's like failure, right? But it comes only with time and actually learning forward. And so, if it wasn't for my mentors, if it wasn't for Bobo, if it wasn't for Dave Carter, if it wasn't for, just a handful of guys that were my surrogate fathers that showed me what was possible, but I just knew that I wasn't born with it. My family of origin definitely gave me, hey, a work ethic, an incredible, honor older folks, be Christ fearing, God number one, wisdom, get as much wisdom as you possibly can. And there is a lot of emotional intelligence that comes with being in scripture at a young age. But if it wasn't for mentors, I wouldn't have gained the emotional intelligence. But I think it's because where I really started to lean in the moment I knew, like, when you started turning 6, 7, 8, I'm like, now you're becoming a person. You're not just like, oh, there's this kid. Now you're like taking on a character, your personality.
Well, everybody says I was really old for my age, like even like as a toddler. So,
well, I think it's because your environment too.
Yeah.
Because we had you doing, I remember the saying, one of Noah's teachers that just said, don't ever do for a child what they can do for themselves. It's like, no, you put on your pants. I'm not going to help you put on your pants. No, you go do that. Yeah. I don't need to do it. So and I remember it used to drive you guys absolutely nuts, but it also showed you, I think you just started to pick up on those things, and you are a product of your environment. And the trust and the respect, I just think, really started to happen at older age, because then you start to realize, like, dude, how much things cost and money. Like, it's gnarly, right?
The economy's rough.
Huh?
The economy's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like, even like talking about like the environment, like, you raised us around like a lot of adults, especially. So that's how I was like, okay, yeah, I was raised around adults, so obviously I learned to respect adults. But I noticed that when I was thinking about it, you never introduced adults to us as Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so. You always introduced us to adults like by their first name. Yeah. So I remember even being like itty bitty and calling these like potentially like influential people like by their first name as a kid. But it was just, I don't know, like the whole like treat someone like an adult, you get acted like an adult back. Yeah. So I felt like that from like a really early age because of the way you raised us and the way you kind of like had it, like the dynamics you made us have with like other adults. So I didn't notice that like a little while ago.
Yeah. What do you think has been some of the keys, with, you went through a really turbulent season of having to reconcile with anxiety and like just, and that's probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do, is to watch you go through that, because it's hands off. I can only be there for support in your corner. And that's the best way to describe it, is you're in the ring and you're duking it out and you're going through all this stuff and we're in your corner. I'm like, dude, I can't step in. I cannot fight this fight for you. You've got to go through it. But God did a really amazing thing in and through all that I'm so grateful, as hard as it was, but you came out of the other end of that. What advice do you have for parents that are, really, really having a struggle with their kids, with whether it be devices, the world, culture, anxiety, depression, pressure from friends, any of that stuff? Like, what would you encourage parents on that?
That's a lot of different answers and questions.
It is.
Also for context, I, right after my 20th birthday, got diagnosed with anxiety because I had like gnarly panic attacks and anxiety attacks like multiple times a day. So that's just some context for those who don't know. So, I mean, you guys were supportive, like, in the best way you could be. And so, like, it sometimes took, like, some, like, asking of questions of, like, how I could, like, can I support you? But, like, in my specific instance, it was like you guys were nurturing, but it wasn't like I was being coddled. Like, you were totally, like, and, like, that's why I kind of feel like we got, like, close again, because I feel like we did go through, like, a little bit of a weird period. But just kind of, like, talking me through it of, like, okay, like, we kind of, like, expected this to happen, like, at this point, because, like, you're, like, me a lot. So it was just kind of, like, coaching me through that from your, like, own personal experiences on how you deal with everything. Especially when I was very hesitant to go on medication. But then also, like, talking through, like, okay, this is why I'm hesitant to go on medication, but you were still, like, supportive of, like, my choices regardless. So that definitely helped, because I did feel a lot of guilt for going on medication because of, like, reasons involving you. So yeah, that definitely helped a lot. But also, like, the whole not being coddled thing, because you, like, if I was, like, crying or having, like, an episode or something, you guys would be, like, physically present for me. But you didn't coddle me, because then it's like, okay, like, you need to, like, drive yourself to school. Like, now we're not, like, letting you, like, this beat you essentially, because you need to go to school. Like, you have to go to college and stuff like that. Even, like, because I had to drive sometimes with, like, ice packs under my legs, or, like, holding an ice pack on my neck, like, driving down the 5 freeway. But yeah, like, that just I, like, appreciated that, even though I hated it in the time being, because then it could show that, like, no, I can actually, like, you said this off, like, all the time. It's like, don't let it beat you or something like that. So just that definitely helped.
Like, you own it. It doesn't own you. Exactly.
So just kind of, like, working through, like, that processing, like, kind of getting over, like, the initial bad hump. Cause, like, I still, like, have it, but, it's a lot more manageable now, because I know that it's like, okay, this doesn't control me, because I'm a big control freak like you are. So the fact that I'm like, dude, I can't even control, like, my own body right now. So the fact that I was like, okay, no, actually.
Totally. Yeah. Any strategies that you could share as to your go-to protocols on, even though it exists, you have a way to overcome it, work with it. Remember that day that I said, embrace it as your best friend, because it's the best thing that's ever happened to you. And rather than trying to, there's something wrong with me, get it away. Talk a little bit about kind of some of your strategies that you've used.
Like, if something's coming up, like, how do I deal
Sure.
with it?
Or how you've dealt with it and overcome in the past, where you're like, man, that was a win. Like, yeah, I got through it. Wasn't easy, but I didn't die. I got through it. Right.
Yeah. I mean, therapy helps. Definitely recommend that. But also, like, if I feel it coming on, or, like, the way that I would sometimes deal with it, it would be like, okay, can I listen to music if that doesn't work? I noticed, especially if, like, I was getting ready for school and I was starting to feel anything come on, I would watch, like, Netflix, comedy specials, just so I could have something to, like, kind of take me out of it, and also feel like other people are in the room. I had, like, an Apollo bracelet, which is, like, a special, like, how it's a neuro something bracelet that sometimes helps.
Like neurotherapy.
Sure. So there would be that, or, like, just, like, even having family friends that also have anxiety, just, like, talk on the phone with me before something.
Totally.
Like, I was going out with a friend of mine, and I really wanted to go out with this person, but I was, like, having a rough morning, and I was already maxed out on my medications, which I only, like, take as a last resort. And I was on the phone with one of our family friends for, like, an hour before, like, leading up to it. And, like, basically I, like, hung up when I walked out the door to go hang out with this person. So just having, like, that kind of support system, and just people who, like, also have it. So that also kind of just know. And then, yeah, like, I struggled making, like, my school my home for the longest time, but then finding a spot where it's like, okay, like, this is, like, my spot if I need to go to that. So it's just, like, kind of working through, like, going down the docket of, like fail-safes, backup plans. I don't know. Yeah.
Like plan A, plan B, plan C, and just knowing that you've got kind of go-to strategies like a dashboard. Okay, I've got this. Next one, I've got this. And that provides some security too.
Yeah.
But I think one of the big ones is community. And then what I love is like, you don't just have us as parents. You have an incredible sphere of influence of a circle of amazing, amazing friends.
Yeah.
That aren't just our friends, they're your friends. And there's a big part of that when it's not just your parent that's helping you navigate these things, right? Talk about that.
Well, I mean, first person that comes to mind, your really good friend, Franco Vescovi, who's a well-known tattoo artist. He's been like an uncle to me like my entire life. And he's like this super cool, like tough looking dude, kind of like me. Like come to find out like, oh no, he's had like really bad anxiety like most of his life as well, or like coming like around the same time I got mine. Yeah. So when he like kind of was like, no, like I'm not surprised this is happening to you at this specific time in your life. And I was like, oh, and he kind of like talked me through like what he usually did. Like he's given me like a good book to read and all this other stuff and like checking in on me, whenever I see him. So definitely doing that kind of is like, okay, so like, cause I was worried this would impact like my success in the future or just like the ability to like do a job. Cause especially as a film director, like you're always on, like people kind of look to you, you set the standard for like the entire day. So it like seeing it from you and seeing it from Franco and stuff like that, I'm like, okay, so I know that, you know, like all these successful people can have like anxiety and like mental health, problems or stuff like that. But it's like, oh, you can actually be successful, but also be like really anxious sometimes and like learn how to like navigate that. Yeah.
Well, and it's the creativity has a price of admission. And when you're a creative person, you can actualize things and imagine things. And I always share with the people that I help teach and mentor is that that's a wonderful weapon. Just don't use it against yourself. And we can like, you know, for some people it's getting on a plane. Other people it's just driving out of the driveway. Other people it's like, you know, overly stimulated on the freeway, you name it. But when we're using that weapon against ourselves, where we get ourselves like all up in our head, and it's literally all in our head where we can get so overwhelmed, it'll immobilize us. And it's like creativity is meant to go out and to project outwardly and to go and to step up and into risk and newness around the corner. What's around, you know, uncertainty, uncharted territory. That's the good place to go put it. But the moment we start to go inward on like, well, what could happen? And then you start playing worst case scenario and then like you get yourself tied in a knot.
No, I'm a big overthinker. Like,
totally.
So that's like,
but it's like, but that's a gift. It's just pointed at the right target. Right. And so a big part of that is that cognitive restructuring of saying, is this the truth? No, that's a lie. I'm not going to believe it. I'm not going to buy in it. What is the truth? Reminding yourself of that. That's probably my number one protocol with anytime there was anxiety or whatever, is to stop and go, okay, this music's coming from somewhere. Is this music coming from the world, the flesh, the enemy, the devil? Or is it coming from like myself that's kicking my own butt? Like I don't need bullies out in the world. I got myself. Yeah. And so that was a lot of the work that I had done. And he wrote a book about it, was like, how do I dismantle that false self and that self-hate, self-sabotage, self, right? And so I think you've done a wonderful, amazing job. Mom and I are just beyond proud to see how far you've come, but also how you continue to become. And like, I just think like even this episode is going to help heal and give so many people permission, like, oh, you're okay. It's okay to be high performer, high achiever. And that comes with the flip side of the coin, is like, that can get the best of you sometimes.
Yeah. I'm definitely like you pointed it out one time. Cause I was like, I don't care what other people think or anything like that, as far as like a project goes or something like that. But it's like about what I think. And you're like, yeah, you're self-worth critic. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And so we can be too hard on ourselves.
Oh,
right?
100. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about that as to your own go-to, what's kind of your step-by-step in terms of your inner dialogue and self-talk as to how you navigate not beating yourself up, not putting expectations on yourself that are unachievable or just unrealistic, while at the same time still keeping a level of excellence. Because it's a big part. Keep excellence, but don't keep excellence if it gets you miserable, right? Talk about that for a minute.
Repeat the first part one more time.
like people can be striving for excellence and perfectionism so much they absolutely sometimes will just get nothing because they drive themselves nuts. They become miserable in the pursuit of excellence.
Well, it's kind of at the point when I start, like, once I get to miserable, like, I need to work on this. But once I get to miserable, that's when I'm like, okay, I probably need to pull back a little bit because, I mean, you've heard about, like, the way film school has gone for, like, the past year. Like,
right.
I set very high standards for myself that, like, my teachers are even like, this is necessary. Like, a usual 4-person crew for a final short film. And I'm hiring an 18-person crew. But yeah, like, I'm really bad at this because I always feel guilty for resting sometimes or, I need to do better at not overworking myself for excellence, even though I'm like, my standard of like, okay, bare minimum excellence is probably some people's best as far as like standards go. But like my standards are very high. So yeah, I just need to work. I feel like I can't answer like this and,
it's like grace. Eloquently. It's like grace on yourself. And it's always a wonderful pursuit. You know, Baba and I always talk about it. You know, we're content, but we're never satisfied.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a really good way to keep pace. And how, talked about it on other episodes as well, that your rest and your recovery and replenishment is absolutely vital for excellent output.
Yeah. Like I learned that definitely this past semester because I think in the span of like 2 months, I overworked myself to the point, especially with anxiety and like added stress. Like I overworked myself, to the point where I was like sick. So that's why, and even like at the beginning of Christmas break after like doing a short film, I was sick for the first few days of break. And I'm like, okay, I need to like actually not do anything for a little while. And I've definitely learned that. And I'm like, I need to like do better at carrying that out in the future. Yeah.
Grace, self-care, and pace is just as important as the output of it, man. And it's so something that I've had to learn over 35 years, that the candle that burns, it's the Blade Runner, when Tyrell looks at Leon and he goes, the candle that burns twice as bright is going to burn half as long. Mm-hmm. And, most of us as creatives want to win the game. And God basically just pulled me off on the sidelines and he goes, dude, I want you to play this game for life, but you're not going to be able to do it playing every play and every position. Like, you need to learn how to go take a bath, go on walks, solitude time in word, time in the truth, time in spirit, time around quality relationships, time around replenishment and refueling. You can't always be output, right? Mm-hmm. So I think you're starting to learn what your thresholds are, which is really fun to watch. And it's leadership development, again, emotional intelligence, and a self-awareness is really what it is. It's pretty awesome. Yeah. Let's go back to, this whole idea of investing time, parents and kids, right? Mm-hmm. And kind of allocating that, as we kind of wrap up this episode. And we're going to do other episodes that are on other topics that you and I are going to unpack together. Your faith journey, what work ethic looks like, stages of growing up. We're going to have another episode of just fun stuff, movies and all that kind of stuff. And things that we like. But what would be some of your recommendations? Let's say a parent hasn't been doing this and they're considering making this a priority of a best day concept that we learned in the master's program. How that can start to get implemented just in the smallest ways. What would you tell, because we did a lot, devotions in the morning, would be a great way to start without overwhelming their kid.
I don't know, because it depends like so much on who the kid is, the pre-existing family dynamics. I feel like that's really difficult to answer, but I'm like, even just like small things throughout the day, even because like sometimes you're busy, so I wouldn't see you sometimes until like after dinner sometimes. But I would see you in the morning, and even though I hated doing the devotions as a kid, you would just be like, oh, this is the only time I'm seeing you today, so I want to spend time with you. That's when I was like, okay, I think I'll do it, just so like we can at least see each other.
Yeah.
Before dinner.
Yeah.
So yeah, like just small things throughout the day just to kind of show that intentionality. Because like, again, it doesn't need to be like a full day at Disneyland or like a trip to Vegas or something like that.
Yeah.
But just like small things throughout the day, or even just like going to grab coffee together.
Yeah.
Where like phones and stuff like aren't present.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I think that's good. And I think one of the things that listeners should know is that best days are not, corporate, meaning it's not the whole family. It's not multiple kids. It's just you and the child. That's like you and the kid. And so that's what made it special. Like when we went to Vegas, you said, hey, I want to get a suite at the Mandalay Bay. We did. You're like, I want to go see Michael Jackson. We did. We went and saw I think that first time.
I want to go back and do that, by the way.
Yeah, it's awesome. But it's, why is that so special? I think it's, I don't think any of us will say, man, I wish we would have made more films or made more businesses. I think everybody's going to look back on the highlight reel and say, like, that was really living. That was making a living for me is like what we do on those best days, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's true, because another reason why I'm glad you guys didn't coddle me when I was going through my rough, like, few months, was because, like, I, like, especially at the age that I'm entering my 20s. I'm like, is this like the fun part of your life? Where you're supposed to like experience everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the whole experience, you wish you experienced more things in life. Like we experience things as a family, like in a month or a year that most people experience like in their entire lifetime, because we do live like an interesting life.
Yes.
So yeah, I definitely hold experiences to be more like special than anything else, because even like, again, like I care about more about the lunches that we would go to versus like something else,
Yeah.
Just like I don't need like a big expensive extravagant like experience to like be special. I just need it to be like intentional.
Exactly. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So that's a great one. Intentional over extravagant.
Yeah.
That could be a title for this episode. I think that's an amazing thing that we could put. But no, I'm really grateful. Any other questions that you have for me on any of this as we wrap up this episode? Because at the end of each episode, people get to ask one or more questions. But anything that relates to best days and,
well, as far as like parenting goes,
yeah,
like when I was like itty bitty versus like, where did you think I would end up? Like just like raising me as like a kid, like where would like even like career path choices, or like where did you think I would gear towards, and like where do you think I'm gonna like end up? Yeah,
the biggest concern that I had was I realized how difficult it was for me as an entrepreneur from age 16 to growing the business with no technology, and then you were born into a technological age, and I looked at, mom being an entrepreneur, with hair, being a hair colorist, owning salons, us living a very entrepreneurial life, working from home, launching multiple businesses. I looked at what you were being born into and I went, okay. And I saw where culture was heading. I'm like, this culture is going to chew her up and spit her out. And I cannot. This generation wasn't the generation of School of Hard Knocks, like mine.
What's School of Hard Knocks?
School of Hard Knocks was like, you're out on the street, good luck. And I literally went door to door. Hey, you want to buy art?
Yeah.
Hey, dude, there was no piece of paper. Here's college. There was no instant influence of like an entire group of people that said, oh, no, we got a place for you. Like, you and Noah were born into a massive network, right? I wasn't. And so when I looked at what you guys came into this world and how this world was operating, I'm like going, it's never been more ruthless and harsh and hard. And then if you want to do that as a creative, and then if you want to do that as an entrepreneur, there's going to be a lot more hands off than there is hands on. But I knew that from 0 to 18, I'm responsible to raise you, but I'm not responsible for how you turn out. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, was going, okay, I know she's going to be a leader, But the only way that she's going to be a leader is if she goes through the hardest stuff way before everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I started implementing at like 9, 10, 11, 12, like going, I need to start treating her like she's 20. I know it sounds crazy, but it's brutal, dude.
Yeah.
It was brutal, but it was like, and then the same thing with Noah with his, you know, being on the spectrum. It was like, okay, I've got 2 thoroughbreds in the stable, but they need to be broken first. And that's exactly how to describe it. Right.
Yeah.
And I think we're reaping the benefit of that now.
No, I mean, like, I even am. Like, I had the dean, and for those who don't know, Biola's film school is, I can't remember if it was the Hollywood Reporter or Variety, but it's one of the top film schools, like, in the nation. And I'm having the deans, like...
Yeah, watch your mic.
Thank you.
There you go.
I'm having, like, the deans of said film school, like, I'm going out to lunch with one of them, or I'm having both of them on my set. And they're very impressed with me, and I'm trying to stay humble, but, like,
your work ethic, and it speaks for itself.
Well, yeah, because of, like, even my professors, they're like, they're all like, you have an insane work ethic. And even some of people that I don't even know, like, on campus, they know who I am because of my work ethic. And everybody asks, like, why are you such a hard worker? And I'm like, I was broken at a young age.
Yeah.
I was raised by my dad. Why do you think I'm like this?
Yeah.
But yeah.
But you're doing a really good job of navigating really tough seasons. And, I think the anxiety is one of your greatest assets, because I tell people all the time, it's kind of a funny joke. I say, hey, anxiety and insecurity is kind of like zits. They keep you humble. They keep you humble, man. And it's, for me, I just think parents, and, you know, if I was to say anything to parents, would be, like you said, I think it's magic, Griff. Intentionality trumps extravagance. Mm-hmm. And if I think every kid would want to just have undivided, full focused attention, all hands on deck.
Yeah. With
their father, and they're not going to get, and I think they will try to fill that void with anything and anyone else. Right.
Well, sometimes, like, even with, like, the mom, because sometimes when, like, for example, Noah's at work or something like that, and I'm out, like, me and mom went to the movies the other night, and I was just, like, thinking, like, it would have been nice, like, as a kid to sometimes have, like, both my parents just for, like, myself, like, have best days, or just, like, even, like, more meals or experiences with, like, the 2 of you alone. Because, like, if it would always be, like, just 3 people, or if all of us are together.
Yeah.
So I wish, like, we kind of did more stuff with mom as well. Even though we did do fun stuff with mom, but, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, totally.
Because I have even seen, like, parents nowadays with their younger kids have, like, one-on-one time with, like, the oldest if it's a large group of kids, or, like, the youngest or whoever.
Yeah.
Just to have both of them have the one-on-one time. And I was like, oh, I kind of wish we did more of that growing up. But
yeah, no, that's good. And that can still take place. And the cool thing is that I want listeners and viewers to also know that Best Days is ongoing throughout the rest of our life as everybody becomes adults.
Yeah.
You know, Baba did a wonderful job of still running marathons with his daughters as they got older and had families, and they still had trips and things like that. So
I will not be doing marathons.
No, you won't be doing a marathon. But we'll be doing this till forever. And that's amazing. And then, you know, it goes to your downline. So I look at, you know, my family of origin didn't have a ton of what we have today. Mm-hmm. And I get it. It is what it is. But I'm like, man, what a beautiful opportunity that we have an opportunity to rewrite and script what we want that story to look like. And I think the other thing, though, too, is like when we take inventory as a family, and that'll be another episode, it's just the whole dynamic of family meetings, why that's so important, our family mission statement, and how we came up with the logo, and how we came up with who we are, what we do, why we do what we do. And the fact that we're so intentional. I know it drives you guys nuts, but I'm like, dude, we got to put this down on the book, because we're winning. We're getting so many great wins every single day as a family. But when we stay focused on that, I'm like, we're doing it in a day what most people try to do in a week. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm so grateful that we get to do this together, and that we're working together now on, like, projects and film projects. You've blessed me with your talent. It's fun to watch. But any parting words as we wrap up this episode?
We didn't talk about movies as much as I thought we would.
Yeah, well, we can do that on episode. We could do movies.
We didn't quote Nacho Libre.
We'll do movies. We'll do music. We'll do food.
Yeah.
We'll do all of our favorites.
Yeah.
So we'll do that in an upcoming episode. Sound good?
Cool. Yeah.
Love you. Thanks for being on here. Everybody, Griff is the bomb. She's amazing. And I'm so glad that she was able to join us on this episode. Leave a comment down below. Love to get your thoughts on this episode, and also rate it. Give us a share, give us a like, and thanks so much for being here. We will see you on the next episode of Creating a Life by Design. Thanks for joining us.